So in this video, we're going to be comparing the Pocket 4K to the Zcam E2 4K. Now I know this camera has been out for a while, but I really wanted to wait until Z-RAW was implemented and some of the bugs were already fixed. Now, to be honest, I thought this was going to be a very easy comparison, but after shooting with both these cameras, it was actually harder than I thought. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're gonna talk about is highlight recovery. Now between these two cameras, I gotta say, I am blown away by the Pocket 4K. Now I've had this Pocket 4K for over a year, and every time I compare another camera with this camera, and I know it's gonna sound biased, I am just surprised every time. Because as you can see here with the Zcam E2 4K shot at Z-RAW, I really was not able to recover any highlights, to be honest. Now both cameras were overexposed by force stops. I even messed around with the Zcam suite, the software that you have to use with this camera when using RAW, and I could not recover any highlights whatsoever. Now with the Pocket 4K, I am showing you guys pretty much a three-step process. Now the first footage you're gonna see is just as is, as shot, 4 stops exposed. Now the second footage I'm showing you is the same shot, but I dropped the ISO to 100 in post and also turned on highlight recovery. And as you can see the difference already. Now the third shot is the same shot with everything that I just applied with the second shot, but now I went ahead and did a lift gamma gain saturation to pretty much bring down the highlights even more and bring the image down a little bit more. And as you can see with this example, the difference between the two cameras as far as highlight recovery is just absolutely stunning. Which brings us to the next topic of dynamic range. Now obviously, if I'm able to recover this much highlights in post, the Pocket 4K is gonna have more dynamic range than the Zcam E2 4K. Now, Zcam E2 claims around 13 stops as well. The Pocket 4K also claims around 13 stops as well. But as you can see in the outside world, in the real world shooting outdoors, you can clearly see that the Pocket 4K has more dynamic range. So with both highlight recovery and dynamic range, I'm gonna have to give to the Pocket 4K. Next topic we're gonna talk about is color science. Now, this is where it gets really tricky. Shooting with both of these cameras and editing both of these cameras, not using any LUTs whatsoever, just creating it with contrast, lift, gamma gain, saturation. These two cameras, they're really close together as far as color science goes. I mean, it's pretty crazy how similar these cameras are. I tried looking around to see if the Zcam E2 has the same exact sensor as the Pocket 4K, but I couldn't find any information. But I don't know, I feel like these two sensors are the same sensors to me. And you're gonna see that in my example here as well. So with color science, I know I love Blackmagic Design's color science, but I gotta say, Zcam E2 4K's color science is pretty darn similar to the Pocket 4K. All right, next topic we're gonna talk about is recording options. The Pocket 4K just blows the Zcam E2 4K out of the water on this one, guys. Since you know the Pocket 4K can shoot B-RAW, ProRes, and all that goodies. Now the Zcam E2 can shoot Z-RAW at 30 frames per second, which we'll talk about a little bit more. You can shoot ProRes with this camera as well, but that B-RAW and the file size that you get with the B-RAW, the recording options, I am gonna have to give to the Pocket 4K. All right, which brings us to the next topic, which is media options. Now, both of these cameras take SSD drive and CFast 2.0 cards, but I'm gonna have to give it to the Pocket 4K because you can use an SD card with this camera. That's pretty much the only thing that separates the Pocket 4K to the Zcam E2 is just having that third option of SD card. All right, and the next thing we're gonna talk about is workflow. This is huge when it comes to the Zcam E2 and the Pocket 4K. The Pocket 4K comes with DaVinci Resolve, and you can pretty much drag and drop RAW files or B-RAW files into that software and you're good to go. You can edit, color, export, you're done. Now with the Zcam E2 right now, for you to edit RAW footage, you're gonna have to transcode or encode, whatever you wanna call it, from their Zcam video suite. So that means you're gonna have to download an extra software, go ahead and import those Z-RAW footage you have, export it into a ProRes or whatever file you want, and then put it in your NLE. Now I'm hoping in the future that they would somehow work it out with these NLE companies so that they can have the Zero supported in Adobe Premiere and DaVinci Resolve. So when choosing between these two cameras, make sure you are aware that right now, as of December 2019, you cannot upload or import Z-RAW files in DaVinci Resolve. All right, let's talk about size and weight and build quality. I'm gonna have to give this to the Zcam E2. At first, looking at the pictures online and watching videos, it looked like plastic to me, really, but after holding this thing, it's actually A, bigger than I thought, and B, it is much more well built than I thought. This thing is really nice. It has a really nice weight to it. To be honest, a lot of people out there thinks that the Pocket 4K feels like a toy. So with size, weight, and build quality, I'm gonna have to give to the Zcam camera. All right, next topic we're gonna talk about is screen size. If you've seen both of these cameras, you're gonna know that I'm gonna have to give it to the Pocket 4K. The Zcam E2 has a screen on top of the camera, which is really cute, but aside for going through the menus, I really could not use this as far as framing and focusing. It was too small in my opinion. So for screen size, I'm gonna have to give it to the Pocket 4K because A, it's touchscreen, and is B, it is much bigger than the Zcam's screen. So obviously, that being said, you will have to get an external monitor with the Zcam if you are planning on purchasing that camera. With the Pocket 4K, you have that built screen. Even though it's useless, a lot of people think it's useless, at least it's still there for indoor use. All right, next topic is battery life. Since the Pocket 4K uses Canon LPE6s, and the Zcam uses Sony, I'm gonna have to give it to the Zcam because it does last a little bit longer. When I was making and shooting these videos, I went through 2 batteries per one of the Zcam, but you have to think about that the Pocket 4K shoots RAW and it has a screen built in, so you have to think about all that. But if we're just talking about the RAW battery life, I'm gonna have to give it to the Zcam because Sony LP batteries are much better than Canon LP6 batteries. All right, next topic, we're gonna talk about rolling shutter between these two cameras. I'm gonna have to give it to the Zcam E2 just because to me it just doesn't look like as much jello-ish than the Pocket 4K. Now they're pretty close, but if I had to pick, I would give it to the Zcam E2 4K. Next topic we're going to talk about are frame rates. Now the Pocket 4K can shoot 50 frames per second at 4K. But with the Zcam E2, you can only shoot higher frame rates if you change your recording option to ProRes HQ. Now that's a real bummer when it comes to this camera, but Zcam is saying that 50 frames per second in Z-RAW, or I think 60, even 60 frames per second in Z-RAW will come in the future. But for now, as of December 2019, the Zcam E2, you'll have to change your recording to ProRes HQ to shoot slow motion because the Z-RAW can only shoot at maximum 30 frames per second. So when it comes to slow motion shooting, I'm gonna have to give it to the Pocket 4K because not only you can shoot B-RAW as slow motion, you can also drop down to ProRes and shoot slow motion that way. All right guys, next up is the menu system. I'm gonna have to give this to the Pocket 4K because A, the screen is touchscreen on the back of the camera, so I can easily maneuver through my menus. The Zcam, on the other hand, I'll have to use these buttons on top of the cameras to go through the menus. The menus are not that complicated, but at the same time, since I'm pressing buttons instead of touching to change settings, it's just more difficult than the Pocket 4Ks. Now, if you have an iPhone, you can control the camera with an iPhone, but I have an Android device, so I'm not able to control the camera wirelessly using this phone. All right, so let's talk about inputs on the cameras. These two cameras pretty much have the same exact inputs. They have HDMI, mini XLR, audio, 3.5mm microphone inputs. So I'm gonna have to make it a tie between the two cameras. I just couldn't really pick one between the two since they are very similar when it comes to inputs. All right, let's talk about low light capability. So when it comes to low light, these two cameras are actually very, very close. It's probably the closest I've ever seen, and I've compared this camera Pocket 4K with a lot of camera. Aside for another Blackmagic camera, I would say that the Zcam E2 is very close to the Pocket 4K slow light capability. Looking at the files, you can see that the Zcam E2, even at native ISO 2500 and the Pocket 4K's native ISO is 3200, the Zcam E2 just has a little bit more noise than the Pocket 4K. So for the night shot, I did stop down on the Pocket 4K to match the brightness of the two cameras, so just keep that in mind. The Zcam E2 was at 1.8 and the Pocket 4K was at 2.0 ISO 3200. But like I said, even at 3200, it was still cleaner than the Zcam E2. Additionally, at ISO 5000, I was just curious to see what it would look like. You can clearly see that ISO 5000, it's close, but the Zcam E2 is just a little bit greenier than the Pocket 4K. So the final verdict, guys, I'm just gonna give you my 2 cents between these two cameras. If you're stuck with choosing between these two cameras for Christmas, keep this in mind. The Zcam E2's price is $2,000, give or take, and the Pocket 4K is $1295 with DaVinci Resolve, which I ended up selling for $150. So that even lessens the price of the Pocket 4K. With the cameras being identical to each other, I just don't see why you would spend more money on the Zcam E2. Additionally, if slow motion RAW is important to you right now, I don't see why you would spend more money on the Zcam E2. Unless you're trying to put the camera on a helicopter and you need a smaller form factor camera, I can see that. But if you are just getting a camera, period, between these two cameras, I just don't see the point of spending more money on the Zcam E2. I mean, it all boils down to the price point at the end of the day. They're both micro four thirds, so you're gonna have to buy micro four thirds lens, or like me, I'm gonna have to get a Metabones dumb adapter or speed booster to put on them anyway. So to me, I just don't see the point of spending more money on the Zcam E2. Like always, I have some files for you guys to download. It's about 8 GB between these two cameras. Make sure to check out the comments below to get that downloadable link. Let me know what you guys think about this video and see if you guys agree or disagree with me. I would love to read your comments, and as you all know, I do read them. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you guys later.